CD. When I discovered them, I was astonished that I've never known about them and never heard them in a concert and never seen them in a program. So it's really a piece that many pianists don't even know, and it's very rarely performed on stages. So when I discovered it, I thought, this is something that I can, would like to maybe, give more justice to, and bring this piece to the front. And this was my way of doing it. First of all, by loving it and taking it on, and also, of course, putting it at the beginning of the CD and giving it a bit more focus as well. It's uncomfortable for the hands and for the fingers, but on the other hand, Schumann is often uncomfortable, and he often writes not very easy for the piano, like very awkward things, very textures that are not easy to play together, lots of voices simultaneously. So to be honest, I don't know if that's the reason, although it may be. There is this idea that when he was at the end of his life, he was, of course, suffered more and more from the mental instability and from the mental illness, and there is an idea that the pieces that he wrote at the end of his life are less good and less kind of the weaker part of Schumann. So it could be that it's simply this, that people look less into depth with the late pieces because there are other late pieces that are not performed. Most of all, there's always poetry in his music. It's always so personal, so really his own. Like he's sharing with you his own story, and it stays intimate. It stays his. So for me, even when it's like the second movement of the Fantasy is very triumphant. Yeah? It's very big. And it's still so personal. It could not be of any other composer. He has such an idiosyncratic language, and his language is, it's with Schumann. It's so rarely is it like down and stable. It's almost never stable. Maybe like his personality. It's never down to the ground and like you have in Brahms, for example. Or of course in Beethoven sometimes, although Beethoven's a bit different, but it's almost never. It's always on the move. It's always like I would call fleeting, and it's always has this buoyancy. Maybe a good word that comes to mind, like something that is kind of floating and moving, but at the same time. I don't know. I think this kind of energy of the constant movement is something that really excites me, and I connect to it very well, I connect to it very strongly. So for sure, that's one aspect, and he's so particular with the character. Like if you take, for example, Waldszenen, the forest scenes, the third piece on the CD. They have the little titles, like Lonely Flowers. And when I play these Lonely Flowers, I really, it's almost like I see the flowers and they're alone, they're lonely in the sense that they're alone like a human being who is lonely. And they just kind of swing in the wind and kind of accept their destiny. And it's like this, the whole piece, the whole waltz, and it's so, you see it in front of your eyes, it becomes so tangible almost, but in such a delicate and kind of precious way that it's also very sensitive. So it's an incredible combination. It's like on the one hand an incredible, a clear picture, but the picture is always full of poetry, and I think this is something that I really love. And then his quick changes. There's always quick changes in Schumann's music very often. of course, in a way more in the character pieces, but even in the fantasy, but a little differently. And these quick changes and mood changes, and it's also part of this fleeting energy, but these changes it just excites me, so it's something I definitely connect with. With Schumann specifically, I felt like as I was getting, sometimes focusing on one small piece and getting kind of into depth, and playing it over and over, or listening and then going back to the piano, I felt like sometimes it was starting to change a little bit in my hands, and maybe because his music is so, again, it's like so poetic and so really like poetry. Poetry is never, it's never stays in one place. It depends on your mood also, how you come to it, and what your reflection of it are. It's always developing. It's always it's something that is always in flux. It's always changing, actually. And this is really something I felt very strongly with Schumann. That it was, the characters. His music is so. Like I said before, it's so full of these images, and the characters start to really sharpen or maybe change a little bit. Maybe get the angle is a bit different, or one aspect of their personality is a bit stronger, a bit, and this is very special. It felt somehow a bit specific to Schumann in the recording process, and in this way I'm very happy I had this possibility, because it's as I said, different thing than when you perform it. If I had to say one sentence, probably I would say that my heart is alive when I play his music.